am Allison Dowda. I was an elementary classroom teacher for 11 years, and I have been an instructional coach for the last 4 years. I am one half of a double dose of Dowda on Teachers Pay Teachers. My husband and I work together to create great resources for teachers for their classrooms. Today, I am really excited to share with you some strategies that are going to help you save time. Now, this is whether you are going back to a traditional classroom, whether you will be teaching virtually, or if you will have some combination of both. It's a lot to tackle, but I will say the things that I'm going to share today are really simple, really basic ideas, but I think it's good to remind everyone that good teaching is good teaching. No matter what grade level I taught, I can say that the elements of good teaching were the same, no matter what age students or what content I was teaching. So with everything else that we're trying to juggle, I think it's just a good time to go back to kind of these basics. So I have 3 simple tips for you to help you save time with digital learning. The first is to choose familiar tasks. So here's the thing, where we are right now, we have students who have been out of school for as long as 6 months once August or September comes and they're back to school. That's a long time for students to be without routine and without consistency, and that's true for some of us teachers as well. We are all aware that in addition, this year is going to bring some extra requirements to have us fill gaps more than usual for our students because they missed all of that extra time. So my very first suggestion is just to limit how much we require them to learn that is outside of the curriculum. Now, here's what I mean by this. If you did virtual learning in the spring, take a moment and just think on the skills and the tasks that you asked students to do that were outside of anything to do with curriculum, anything to do with math or English. Maybe many students had to learn how to navigate Zoom. Some teachers did as well. Maybe they had to start learning how to upload things to Google Classroom or how to use Google Classroom and turn in assignments and that sort of thing. There were literally dozens of things that we asked students to do that had nothing to do with our standards and nothing to do with the content. So just being mindful that there's so much more that we're asking them to do, we want to try and limit that as much as possible. So this very first tip is to choose tasks that are familiar. I want to share a story really quick. Way back when teaching was normal, when I was in my classroom, I used station rotations and centers a lot for my math instruction. And what I found was when students were apart from me and in their small group stations, they really were not being very successful. They were not staying on task. They were really struggling with the work and just kind of goofing off. So I really decided to dive in and figure out what is causing them problems during these stations. And what I found was this. When they were apart from me and they were doing these activities, these great activities that I found, things that I found on Teachers Pay Teachers or things that I just kind of threw together for myself and put in these centers for them, good activities, but the kids were just lost. And so what I found was the problem wasn't the content that I was asking them to do, like whatever the math skill was, they were fine and they could handle that. But the problem came in I was asking them to do so many different tasks. One time it was this game, the next time it was another game, the next time it was another game or activity. And so it was too much for them to keep up with without me being there with my thumb just right on top of some of them. So I imagine you can relate to that. So what I decided to do when I was in the classroom was I buckled down and I picked 4 activities that I thought I'm going to train my students to do these 4 things really well. I happened to choose task cards and tic-tac-toes and a dice game and matching. And so I thought if I can teach them these 4 games, these 4 activities really well, then they're going to be able to do those apart from me. And I was able to just switch out the content. So whatever the skill was that I was teaching in math, that got put into one of those 4 games or 2 of those 4 games. For me, that was a game changer. It was huge because now the students were no longer struggling to figure out how to do whatever the task was, and instead all of their brain capacity was able to focus on instead the content and doing the skills that I really wanted them to be mastering. So as an instructional coach, I can tell you I have a lot of conversations with teachers during regular teaching and during this virtual time of teaching, just stressing the importance of having these routines and these same things that teachers just can use over and over. Oftentimes as teachers, it's like we feel like we have to reinvent the wheel all the time. We have to be super creative and we always have to top ourselves, and we really just sometimes need to take a step back and just let the familiar run our classrooms. Let things be predictable. So what I mean by this is when you present your lessons or when you're asking students to complete certain assignments, if we can be consistent with those styles and not asking students to constantly learn a new routine or a new task. Instead, we just want them to focus on the curriculum and on that learning because, again, they've got these big gaps this year that we're expecting, and so we really want to make sure that we're focused on those things. So when I say that during this time of distance learning and digital learning and teaching, it's more important than ever to build familiar routines, this is the sort of thing that I mean. I have a couple of examples for you, and I think that you might find them helpful. So the very first thing that I want to talk to you about is this agenda, this classroom checklist agenda. And the idea with this is that in a class where, say, you are digital, but again, this also works really nicely in a traditional classroom if you were getting to see your students face to face, then what you will find is letting students know exactly what to expect is just so important and so helpful for them. The very first thing that I want to share with you is this digital agenda checklist. So what this is this is just a simple thing that I created using Google Slides, and you can see that I have my subject area at the top. I have a space for student names and then the week of something. So the idea is I would create one of these each week, share it out with students in Google Classroom or whatever you choose to use, whatever your learning management system is or whatever your strategy is, and they would have this for the week. So here's an example of what one day might look like. So let's say that this is Monday, and I have some tasks listed for them where in my classroom, when I left the classroom, I was teaching 3rd grade math. And every day we started class with a skip counting song because multiplication is a big skill, and that was a strategy that I relied heavily on for students was skip counting. So the first task is that they would watch the skip count by 3 video, and it's listed here on the left. So it has a number 1 where this was number 1. This says number 1 skip counting song. And this video is embedded, so whenever they click, it's going to begin to play for them. Their second task is to complete a hidden picture for 2s, 5s, and 10s multiplication facts, and it's linked there. So they're going to be able to just click this, and it opens up into the hidden picture that I want them to complete, just as a quick multiplication practice. The next thing is, number 3, watch today's video lesson. So this is just a video that I pulled, and it says number 3, today's video lesson. And this is just a video that I pulled from YouTube just as a random example to throw in here so you can see how this works. And number 4 is to complete the worksheet on the next slide and submit it in Google Classroom. So on the next slide, here is one of my maze worksheets where students are asked to drag and drop one of these boxes as they work their way through the maze. Now on this, I do also include a little thing feeling extra today. They can watch the optional video of growth mindset for kids, and here's the optional video. This is a great spot, even though maybe this is for a math classroom. This is a great time to pull in something for growth mindset or for social emotional learning, and making sure that we're supporting students in these ways. Now for each of these tasks, you can see here on the right, I have a box that says to drag check marks to boxes when complete. So these little check marks just drag over into these boxes. So at a glance, students and teachers can tell their progression through the checklist for each day. So you would have this same checklist for each day, and some of these tasks, maybe on Tuesday, maybe they are going to do the exact same skip counting song, and perhaps even the same hidden picture, or maybe a hidden picture that has some different numbers thrown in it, because that's going to be consistent in their routine. then maybe they will watch a video and again complete a worksheet. So that's the very first way that you can have it set up so that there are some templates in place so students know exactly what to expect with Google Slides for their agendas. So they'll know, they and their parents, which is really helpful too, and I'll be referencing that a lot, they and their parents will know where to look for all of their assignments for the week. The second place that I feel is really a great spot for a template is if you create your own videos. And I'm going to be talking more about videos in a little bit, but if you have a video lesson, making sure that with your video lesson that you have a clear beginning, something where you are introducing the new skill. And then you're going to have a middle section where students get an opportunity to practice a skill. Maybe within the video you tell them to pause for a moment and solve a problem, that sort of thing. And then at the end of the video, there should be some sort of just formative check for understanding that they're submitting to you so that you know how they're doing with that lesson. So again, that's an idea for a sort of template that you can create with your video lessons. Lastly, the last template suggestion that I have is about this idea of worksheets. And so with worksheets, making sure that you are keeping things simple for sure and keeping things about the content. So with this, going back to my example where my agenda was, here I have a worksheet. I make these mazes. And so I discovered I love creating these mazes in my classroom because once students learn how to do the maze, then they can just fly through and you will never see students so excited about working a worksheet. I'm telling you, they just really get into this. And so it doesn't feel like as much work to them because it is kind of an adventure. So they get to go through and answer these questions. So this is a template that I created and I went in and I have these made for all sorts of different math standards. And once I explain it once, the students are familiar with how it works, and then they are able to just go in and whatever the content is, again, I can interchange it. The same thing is true for the hidden picture template that I included on the agenda, number 2, where it said complete the hidden picture for 2s, 5s, and 10s multiplication facts. So the idea with that, this is actually a product that I sell in my store as a template, and I have different series of these with different pictures around different themes. And so there is a freebie for you to download, and it is on your handout. And so if you go to that freebie, that's the same one that I used for my example here for my 2s, 5s, and 10s multiplication facts. The idea is that all I have to do is change the questions that I'm asking, and then the students will answer those, and it's all set. It's already created, and it's just a worksheet that kids really enjoy doing because it's really engaging for them. So make sure that you check that out and get that freebie downloaded. My second simple tip is to provide clear instructions. So I want to share with you a quote, one of my favorites from Brené Brown, and I think it's certainly relevant and worth keeping in mind for our students. The quote is, "Clear is kind, unclear is unkind." During this time of digital teaching and learning, it's a big challenge to provide feedback to our students. If they're having problems, it's not as easy for us just in a classroom. You just kind of look over their shoulder and see how they're doing, and you can give a little feedback and have a sense of where they are with things. But if you're teaching from a distance or digitally, then you don't necessarily have that as an option. It can take a lot of effort communicating back and forth to figure out what exactly a student is struggling with. So to combat that, what I would recommend is that we need to make sure that our instructions are really clear for students so that they aren't having trouble with the task that we're asking of them. And instead, if they're just struggling with the content, then we help them with the content. So the kinder we are to our students, really the kinder we are to ourselves also, because it's going to save us time in the long run for the questions that they have and being able, instead of having to go back and forth with them all the time. The best way that I have found to provide clear instructions, and this is in a traditional classroom or in the digital learning classroom, is to create videos. You can use videos that other people have created and shared on a platform such as YouTube, or you can create your own videos. Now, I know that just by my saying creating your own videos, there are some people out there who I sensed your blood pressure raise immediately upon hearing that. But take a couple of deep breaths for just a second and hear me out. Research says that in a flipped classroom, students are most receptive to videos where they hear and see their own teacher presenting the information. So, reminding you that students will not expect perfection, and they will be comforted in just knowing that you took the time to help them. So this ties into being clear and being kind with your students in the directions that you give. So I have some ideas for 3 important ways to use video in your classroom. Remember, step 1 was to use familiar tasks such as templates. When I create a template, I also create an instruction video for how students should use it. So as an example, remember back on the agenda that I shared, there was the hidden picture template that the students were linked to, and whenever they clicked on that link and they viewed the hidden picture template, there was a video there on the right, and it says, "Need help getting started? Check out this video." And it's a video of me just explaining, here's how this works, here are what my expectations are for you to complete this worksheet. The same thing on that agenda, the maze worksheet that I had, there on the left, need help getting started? Watch this video. And so there's a video of me explaining how to work through that particular video. Now, each worksheet has a video for how a student should engage with that particular task without giving away any answers for that particular worksheet. Another way to use video is to give students instruction. So that way they can watch a short video to review material that you covered in class at their own pace while they are away from you. Recording yourself working problems is also a huge help for students and for parents as they're working independently. That's one thing I'm sure several of you heard from parents, that they've struggled sometimes with knowing exactly how to help their child. And so during this time, if you can record yourself working some problems and solving some problems and explaining your thinking, then that's going to be a tremendous help for students and for parents. Lastly, I think that videos are a must-have in directing students how to use technology. So for example, if you're using Google Classroom, record yourself navigating through your course and just explaining and giving an overview of it. If you want students to submit assignments to you online using Google Classroom or a different platform, make sure that you have a little video for them on how exactly they go through those steps. Now again, there are videos created and available on YouTube that you could grab anytime, but if you want to create those for yourself too and just give that personal touch, you certainly can. My favorite tool for recording videos is the website Screencast-O-Matic.com. I'm currently using it to record this video. You can record up to 15-minute long videos with their free account using either your webcam or recording your screen so that you can talk as you navigate on your computer. While 15 minutes may not sound like enough time to record a lesson, you can take the approach that many experts recommend and keep your videos between 5 to 10 minutes each. Then, if you have additional content that you want to share with your students and that 5 to 10 minutes wasn't quite enough, just make another video and keep them short. It helps students to focus as they are watching, and so they can really pay attention to what you are saying, but it also really helps if they are going back and rewatching videos and they want to find that one little 30-second segment in the middle of a video. It's much easier to find in the middle of a 5-minute video than it is a 40-minute video. So that can help, again, students and their parents. I make lots of videos for students and for teachers, and I'm just very quickly going to share my process with you that I go through whenever I create a video. So my first step is always to write a script. Sometimes I write out my script word for word. Sometimes I will just do bullet points as if a presentation is being given. Next, make sure that you open all of the files that you are going to be referencing. If you are doing a screencast, if you are recording your screen as you go through, make sure, for instance, if you are going to do a tutorial on how to submit an assignment in Google Classroom, make sure that you have Google Classroom open so that you aren't having to wait for it to load in the middle of a video. Third is to go to Screencast-O-Matic.com. Or you can use other things. There's Screencastify. Some people really like Screencastify. For me, my preference is screencastomatic.com. And you record your video and you can upload it directly to the internet. You can stick it in Google Classroom in your Google Drive, upload it to YouTube. Whatever is easiest for you, you can do it that way. So that was step 2 of providing clear instructions. Step 3 is to take advantage of self-grading. Now, I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail on this one, and I'm certainly not going to get into all the technical details of things. But what I do want to share with you is just this idea of there are a lot of teachers who are taking advantage of Google right now, and I think that's fantastic. I've noticed a trend of a lot of people using Google Slides and giving worksheets and things in Google Slides, which that's exactly what I did on my mazes. I think that slides are really great, and I think that they have a lot to offer. However, I will say that one of the big struggles with this past spring, what we learned with digital teaching and learning, is keeping up with the grading and being able to turn things around quickly so that students can have meaningful feedback. And being able to get that done quickly can be a struggle. So my thing is, we are currently in the year 2020. There is no reason, if we're asking basic questions that students can answer multiple choice or with one word, there's no reason to not have that grade itself so that students can get quick feedback and so you yourself can just get things scored automatically. That's why whenever possible, I recommend using Google Forms. That way you can set it as a quiz. There are videos for how to do this online. But you can set the form as a quiz, and the grading is done for you so you can get immediate feedback. It might take an extra minute to set up, but to have everything graded for you and to have students get immediate feedback is just very much worth it. And you get to use that year after year, even once things go back to normal and we are back in a traditional environment. Another tool that I discovered and started using right before distance learning began was Boom Cards on boomlearning.com. These are interactive, self-checking task cards with tons of options for how you can use them. And again, students get immediate feedback on these. So I'm not one to spend a lot of money, especially on classroom things, but you can get a free account for this. I will say, though, they do have a paid account, which is pretty reasonable. I think it's $25 for a year. And you can assign cards to students, and you can see how they're progressing through them. You can see what questions they have answered correctly and what they have missed. So to me, as a teacher, to get that information back from them would be worth the $25 a year for me personally. So that might be something that you want to check out at boomlearning.com. So this last tip, again, was super simple and just a reminder to make things easier on yourself and better for student feedback by using self-grading tools like Google Forms and Boom Learning. So these are my 3 simple tips to help you save time with distance learning. Choose familiar tasks, provide clear instructions, and take advantage of self-grading whenever you can. Be sure to grab the handout for this video with a reminder of these steps, along with links to some of the resources that I shared today, including a free digital agenda checklist template and a free hidden pictures template, so you can plug in your own worksheets and start creating those for all sorts of different topics. If you enjoyed this video and you would like more teaching tips from me in the future, then please subscribe to our mailing list, which is also linked in the handout. I truly hope that this video has been helpful for you and that it helps you to have a fantastic school year.